Well, many of you have been posting your comments to our page on Facebook, Joy News on TV. And very interesting comments, a couple of them are. But most topical this morning, you have a couple of news tidbits you want to give them.
Yeah,
what's really happening on the various websites?
I'm pulling a bit of it from myjoyonline.com. You know, the minority in Parliament is set to publish what it has described as a damning report about the controversial sale of Merchant Bank to Fortis private equity fund. So the minority opened its own inquiry into the controversial deal, inviting evidence from the public following failure to secure a bipartisan parliamentary inquiry into the sale. So I guess we'll see a lot more of this unfolding in the course of the day. The sale of Merchant Bank to Fortis is already being challenged in court by Mr. Andrew Awuni, Executive Director of the Center for Freedom and Accuracy. And yeah, so this is one of the topical things that people are discussing. I have another interesting story. So South Africa's government will distribute coloured and flavoured condoms among students to end condom fatigue. That's according to the health minister there. His comments came after a survey showed that condom usage had fallen in South Africa. And yesterday I heard a very interesting story. A boss saying that because of the taxes that have been put on condom importation in Ghana, women are getting more pregnant.
Your boss? You said your boss said it?
No, I said a boss somewhere said that. I didn't say my boss said that.
That's what I'm asking, whether your boss said it or you said a boss.
Oh my God. Okay, but you know, coming to work this morning, I was monitoring the BBC, and one other issue in Uganda, apart from the fact that they've tightened laws on gays and lesbians, what's happening is that people who are HIV positive are faking. They're paying to get results from doctors that say they are not HIV. So essentially they are HIV negative.
Just to get jobs.
And exactly, because if you're looking for jobs today, most of the people will say, bring a certificate that shows that you are HIV negative, even though
a doctor's report,
has a doctor's report, exactly. And so people are faking it. Wow.
Things are happening. As a result of that country's charities or NGOs working to reduce the issue of the rates of HIV in Uganda. We know 7.5 million people there are really infected. And they are really disappointed, but they don't think that it's a general situation. Well, we would want to speak on the subject of the economy, because on Wednesday, the Bank of Ghana, they maintained the policy rate at 18%, and the policy rate hints at the rates that of interest slapped against commercial banks by the Bank of Ghana when they borrow from there. And the committee raised the rates by 200 basis points last month from 16% to the current rate. And at the time, the committee said the rates could be put down to domestic fiscal pressures ranging from exchange rate fluctuations to price volatility, as well as external factors such as limited capital inflow due to the ailing global economy, but also the current pressures that Ghana's economy is facing. We have on the line financial analyst, but also a lecturer with the University of Cape Coast Business School, Dr. John Gachi. A very good morning to you, Dr. John Gachi. Hello?
I am Mr. John Gachi.
Okay, Mr. John Gachi. Sorry for pulling your legs there. Don't worry. I knew that you would respond to that. It's been a while. How are you?
I'm fine.
Okay. And now, 18%, based on what indications or indices?
I don't get your question, please.
Okay. The Monetary Policy Committee, they pegged it at 18%. And what can you hazard as far as observations are the indices by which they arrived at the 18%, or maintain that still at 18%? Because we know what the issues are in the economy and the shocks thereof.
Okay. Yeah, I think we all know that inflation is rising, and the general environment for interest is also not the best. But new policies which actually influence the previous reviews, such as removal of subsidy, rising tariffs, changing in petroleum prices from time to time, actually put some risk into the system. These issues were factored seriously in the examination in the previous review. So I thought that those important factors have been considered already. If there are new emerging factors that should be considered to bring about upward review, then we will need to take some time to study and monitor those measures. So it was expected that they were going to maintain the policy rate, and they did so. But I must also indicate that maintaining the policy rate does not mean anything with respect to changes in lending rate. It does not influence anything positively with respect to access to credit, especially by our key real economy participants like the SMEs and those who engage in productive activities. That does not mean that access to credit will increase to them. But it does actually put what we call signaling effect into economic expectation, where we know that at least over a certain short period of time, rates will not go up, then businesses can plan within this framework. That is the most important aspect of the announcement.
I was recently reading an observation by the World Bank and also a report by the African Center for Economic Transformation. And particularly, they said that within this very period, it is the medium to small scale enterprises that are suffering most, especially because the cost of doing that type of businesses have gone high.
Yeah, that is the cause for worry to everybody. Because if you look at the structure of any economy, be it advanced economy or developing economy, the base of productive activities contributing to GDP, contributing to revenue mobilization, generation of employment, is actually coming from the SMEs. But at the same time, they are the ones who are actually suffering any economic hardship that the economy goes through. And that is the reason why when these things persist, their contribution to the economy will go down and the general economy will slow down. That is why we need to address the issue as fast as possible to give some space to the SMEs to operate in the interest of the economy and in the interest of all Ghanaians. The situation of our SMEs can be seen clearly in the financial stability report of Bank of Ghana. You will realize that especially the indigenous SMEs, because of the situation, bearing in mind that most of the credit that they access in the financial market are actually short-term. They find it difficult to turn around and pay. So if you look at the non-performing loans of the bank, you will realize that about 76% is attributed to non-payment by SMEs in Ghana, and that is a worrying situation that we need to think about.
Maintaining the policy rate at 18%, how does that help in perhaps stabilizing issues of inflation or the current rate at which prices of goods and services are? And how does that reflect overall in the cost of doing business at that very level? We're still talking about small and medium scale levels.
Well, I think the policy rate is just a reflection of how the indicators have performed in the economy. It's a reflection of how they look at our foreign reserves. It's a reflection of how they look at the build-up of inflation in the economy, exchange rate volatility, other policies with respect to changes in utility prices, deficit, etc. That is a reflection through the announcement by Bank of Ghana. But that policy rate itself has no significant influence on the SMEs now, because even at the time where policy rates go down, the commercial banks do not reduce their lending rates. So if you maintain the policy rate, it does not actually inure to the benefit of the SME. And the point I am making is that there are many people who take decisions on daily basis based on information from the key stakeholders, such as the Ministry of Finance, such as the President of the Republic, and such as the Bank of Ghana. So if Bank of Ghana says that, look, I am not increasing the policy rate, which is supposed to influence interest rate, then the decision of all key stakeholders investors across board that are interested in the Ghanaian economy will have a certain positive thinking towards the economy. That is the greatest benefit.
Okay. Now, the Minister of Finance appeared before Parliament, before, of course, Parliament rose, and they had to adjourn their sittings for the next period. All those inferences he made as far as the measures, well, that they are taking, and they have announced, and the various decisions that have been contested by some economists, financial analysts, etc. Do they in any way give confidence to the investor community, one? Do these policy measures or fiscal measures give confidence to the local investor committee too? And then thirdly, how would it reflect on the overall environment of doing business?
Well, I think what the finance minister did is supposed to be done, even on the frequency should actually increase. Because when you are managing a difficult time, people need to get information as to how policies are performing. You need to give feedback in short intervals so that will influence their reviewing their own plans and programs for their businesses and for their investment activities. That is what is done in any important economy. As to what other people say about the economy, that is very important to the extent that it makes those who are managing the economy more efficient, more focused, and they are aware that they are not the only who knows about the economy. Other people are watching and they can contribute. And then when you put all these things together, it will make the managers of the economy do the things that they ought to do in order to bring to an end the problem that we are facing. So by so doing, it generates some kind of confidence in the business community that, look, these are measures which are taken. This is the expectation of the policy implementers of of the economy. So they have some hope based on what the policy implementers tell us. But one thing that we need to understand is that no matter what I say, no matter what some other person say, no matter what the person can be award-winning, Nobel Prize award-winning economist, whatever he says, so long as he's not the one managing the economy, the one that we should hear most is the one who is managing the economy. Unless we have any reason to doubt what the person is saying, we need to focus on what the managers of the economy tell us. So to that extent, what they tell us should be able to generate some confidence in the economy.
Okay. So invariably, you're telling us that no matter the publics are, they need to have confidence in the managers of the economy.
That is very important, because if you don't do that, then it means that you don't have confidence in the entire process of trying to solve the problem. And if we degenerate into that level, then we have much more problem for the economy. And that is why those who are managing the economy must also carry themselves in such a way that they should be trusted. And if that doesn't happen, we will have a serious problem at hand. But Amas indicates that the efficiency of the economy does not only come as a result of the efficiency of those who are managing. The efficiency of the economy management also comes as a result of having a vibrant criticism from people who know about the economy. And that is very good for the economy of Ghana. Because if an economist come and raise a doubt about an issue, then those who are implementing will come and then clarify. If that economist is right, then we need to follow. If it is not right, then we follow the policy implementers of the economy. I think that is what is happening, and it happens in every economy. We must allow that process to go on, so that those who are managing the economy will know that they have a serious task during the time that they are implementing serious measures to solve the problems of this country. The days that they are managing the challenges of the economy and they sit down in their offices, they don't want to communicate to the people of Ghana, the investment community, the international community, the public. That period must be gone. That is not how you manage an economy when it is in challenges. go to the U.S. since 2007. They come at frequent intervals to tell the people of the U.S. and the entire world what they are achieving as a result of the policies they are implementing. Why they are failing, they state it. In fact, one thing that I'm even expecting the Minister of Finance to start thinking about, now if these challenges do persist, we are now in the 4th month. Does that mean that the target that he set in terms of GDP will be achievable? Inflation is achievable, exchange rate achievable. If these things are not achievable, it is objective, realistic. It is done in every economy that he should come and revise the expectation for those key macroeconomic factors.
Well, we do understand that, but we know that in this part of our world, they take the politics of it very seriously. But that is not for your commentary, it's just a rhetoric. Do you think, in your own estimation, the initial steps that and the measures that were announced by the Bank of Ghana have made any impact in the last 3 months? Now, if they have made impact, in which areas have we seen those impacts be made?
I think Bank of Ghana was addressing 2 important issues. Number one, you have gotten to a point where there was so much noise about the performance of your currency. And that noise has the potential of sparking serious speculation that will strengthen the weakness of your currency. That is one. Then the second one is the real depreciation of your currency. So the Bank of Ghana was attempting to reduce the noise about the economy, which has the potential to send bad signal and which will negatively affect the economy. And to that extent, we can all observe that the negative noise, that is the complaint about the economy in terms of the performance of the city, has gone down somehow, and that is an achievement. Then the second one, the city has performed marginally better than the period that we are all crying. So that is the modest achievement. But that is not in any way trying to say that the normal behavior of our currency will change. The normal behavior of our currency is that our currency does not appreciate for a long period of time. In fact, sometimes to observe appreciation for 1 week, it's a difficult thing. So we will continue to see the same thing. But the major reason why the Bank of Ghana stepped in, I think to a large extent, some have been achieved.
Now, if we've seen some level of monumental stability following those policy or fiscal decisions by the Bank of Ghana, do we think that with the current direction at which we need to move for the medium to long term, for which we've had the earlier announcement by the finance minister, even before his recent address before Parliament, could be the best steps that will need to be taken? Because there have been worries out there that those medium to long term policy or fiscal measures, one, have not been clarified and really have not been scheduled in a way for people to understand.
There are 2 things that we need to observe here. Sometimes we put some pressure on Bank of Ghana, which we ought not to actually do. Bank of Ghana's role in all this economic management is to ensure what we call price stability and then protection of investors and actually ensure some confidence in the economy. The role of Bank of Ghana. And that is what Bank of Ghana is doing with some level of professionality, independence, and then some kind of proactive engagement. The other aspect of the economy management is managing your deficit, ensuring that you achieve your GDP target, you mobilize revenue, you reduce, frivolous expenditure, etc. Ensure that the jobs are created. That is not the job of Bank of Ghana. That is the job of the finance minister. That is the job of the executive. And the executive have outlined all those measures. And the executive has explained to us that these measures will not take 1 day, will not take 2 months, will not take 6 months, even a year to come to clear fruition. It will exceed at least 1 year. That has been given to us. So that should be the expectation. And for me, I have been expecting this thing for a long time because all the measures that we have put in place, we are sending a signal as if after 1 month, those measures will solve the problem. So now the finance minister has come with a clear economic thought and made it clear to every one of us that, look, the expectation should be beyond this year. And that is correct in financial management of the economy. So I believe that the business community, the individuals should put their mind on that. You see, when the economy is suffering, there are some groups that benefit from the suffering of the economy. And any measure that you bring on board that is going to affect the benefit that those category of people or businesses within the economy are getting, necessarily they are going to complain over every policy that you bring. And they may not be able to give you alternatives. That is what we are experiencing. And the Bank of Ghana must be bold and continue to maintain those things that, by its review, shows that they are good for the economy. You cannot listen to the interests of everybody. Remember, in the investment and financial environment, there are those that we refer to as entrepreneurs of evil. For them, this is not the interest of the economy, the interest of their benefit. But the Bank of Ghana is looking at the interest of the economy and not one individual investor. So we need to bear that in mind also.
Though, let's look at the subject of the posture of the president, his finance minister, and the Bank of Ghana, and let's say the various private sector-led groups, AGI, etc. Does it give indications to the outside investor community and also the multi-support donors, etc., that, well, we are charting the right path, taking the right decisions just to make sure the various structures of the economy bounce back?
Well, I don't know what you mean by the posture, but what I do know is that when an economy is going through a challenge, the President of the Republic must show commitment to the issues that he needs to engage in order to solve the problem. If there is a need to convince some external partners to bring, some package to support, we must see the president doing that. If that is what the president is doing, that is in the right direction. We do not want to see a president who behaves as if he is not aware that we are going through some challenges in the country. So if he's showing that he's aware of the challenges and he thinks that some of the measures he's taking, they are the things that should be done in order to bring to end the problem, that is a good posture. Then we do not want to see a finance minister who only come and speak doom. We want a finance minister who will clearly spell out the problem and at the same time provide solutions and give hope to the people. And if that is what the finance minister has done, he's in the right shoe.
I'm not asking you to be guessing. I'm asking you, based on your observation, whether you think that those postures are right. For example, the president currently is somewhere in Brussels. He's been all over the place. He's been to ECOWAS and all that. If not that we're having economic difficulties, well, it would seem, as far as the physical evidence are, that everything is all right. But, of course, we have problems at home. But when these steps are being taken, how do they influence and what signals do they send, I mean?
I don't seem to get your question, please.
Okay, the president has gone to Brussels. He goes to meet world leaders. He meets leaders in the sub-region. We have the finance minister also always conferring with the investor community, the various groups we have in Ghana, the World Bank, etc. What sort of picture does it paint, I mean?
See, if you look at our economic situation, you will realize that we do not have a pure homegrown problem. Our problems are linked to some international dimensions. The inflow of donor support is one cause. The limited inflow is one of the causes of depreciation we are having, which we need to recognize because our budget is supposed to be supported by donor partners to the tune of about 35 to 40%. So if that is not coming, definitely it affects your inflow of foreign currency. The supply side will be affected. We must also know that the policies of the European Union have some repercussion on us, and they owe a duty to us to ensure that we also grow at a certain pace. Because at the end of it all, if they grow to a certain level, and we are not growing to a certain level that can support their economy and for them to also support us, they will also be losers. So the president must convince these people to see reason why there is a need to pump some money or some technical expertise, whatever, into our economy, not only in our own interest, but also in their own interest. So the president, if the president is doing that, I think he's doing a good job on that line. But we do not want to see a president who behaves as if he doesn't know what is happening in the country. That is the underlying thing that we talking about.
So you're saying the president is behaving as if he doesn't know. Is that what you're saying?
No. What
Okay.
I'm trying to say is that, in my mind, the president is doing what is supposed to be done by a president who is managing a difficulty.
Okay. You've made your point, sir. And thank you for your contributions this morning. John Gachi, he is a financial analyst, but also a lecturer with the University of Cape Coast Business School. And thanks for joining us this morning. Thanks. We're always grateful for your comments. We'll have to get to a studio, continue with AM Talk. And we have Dr. Echisi Kanku. He is with the School of Communications, the University of Ghana.
That's right.
Okay. Is it not a college?
Well, the university is going to go according to the collegiate system, which is part of the grand plan that IET wants to implement. So when that happens, it's going to be a college on its own and have it will be semi-autonomous and help in the administration.
So they'll have a principal, or what do they call it?
Well,
a college provost?
Or a provost or a dean. A dean, it's some of the universities in the US have that system, instead of just a head of department or something, and it decentralizes the administration. You're able to take your own decisions, and you're able to raise funds, have your own graduation. It kind of decentralizes things, gives the colleges more power. I think it's good for college.
And the certificate they'll be awarding will be?
Well, it will still be University of Ghana, but what will happen is this time around, there's a lot of clogging in the system, and a lot of decisions have to be taken at council level. I mean, the way red tape and all that. So I think it's good because
it will reduce the bureaucracy.
It will a lot. And
when is that expected to be implemented?
Actually, I know that I don't think it's going to be this year, but then it might be as soon as next year.
It's a process in the making.
They're almost at it, and I think it's good for us because tertiary education needs a huge overhaul in this country, and I think it is.
So you've been educated where, in the US or Canada?
I was in the US, University of Iowa.
So you know how it is. Yeah. Okay. Now we're just making commentary on the subject of the economy, and well, I'm not saying you're an economist or you're the best one around.
Sure.
But when it comes to issues of increase of petroleum prices and its resultant influence on transport fares, etc., as far as the communication aspect is concerned, how does it influence how the public will perceive the managers of the economy, whether it's the government of the day, etc.?
Right. Well, I'm happy you made that caveat, but I mean, we are all still contributors to the economy and to national development and communication.
Actually, we're all economists on every day because we take economic decisions every day.
Fantastic. Okay, but then like you rightly noted, the communicative aspect is very important because communication is very central to development. You can decide, there have been examples of times when people are implementing agricultural innovations. There have been times that even in the business world, and just because of wrong or bad communication, people can take decisions that would affect their life, even in health, when people are fed with bad information. So the communication part is very important in the sense that the president needs the country and the citizens on board in the national development agenda. He needs to carry the people along with him. And that is why a lot of times the best presidents are also great communicators because they are able to relate to the government and the people. And a very important thing, you remember there was a time when a president of a country said the fundamentals of the economy are still right, when the country was on the brink of collapse. What people felt was that there was a huge disconnect between the governed and the governors. And what it meant is that if there is a disconnect between the people you are governing and the people in government, it means that the policies that you are going to make are not going to serve the people very well.
Is that what is happening? There's a disconnect?
I think to an extent there is a disconnect, because they don't have to go through the traffic like we do. They don't have to stand by the roadside. I mean, like some of us do. They don't have to go through. Some of them don't even buy their own food. And I think that gap, okay, there's a huge disconnect between the electorate and those who govern us. And I think reality has to be brought on board. So, in terms of communication, what the president needs to do is to first of all admit that we are in a crisis. I think a lot of times what really peeves Ghanaians off is the fact that there is a certain sort of denial. Okay?
State of denial.
A state of denial. It's almost as if they're as to the realities of the situation.
Oh.
And so I think that what people want to do is an admission of that. And secondly...
Haven't we had the president, even to the extent of saying that we've chewed the meat to the bones, making such inferences, the finance minister also come out and say, and various even information ministers really consider the economy is in a bad shape, but it's not saying we're worse off.
No,
so
I mean, they've done. Maybe the finance minister is the only one who has gotten as close as possible to saying that. Okay, I know what you mean, and a lot of people don't like him for that. I mean, we're all here. You remember when the Minister of Information and Media Relations said that the honesty of the finance minister on the economy disturbs him a lot. Okay, so yeah, he's done his bit, but what I call the professional politicians or the professional political class will never do that. They go on radio, they go on TV, and they try to deny the state of amnesia in which the country finds itself. They parrot the president's goal and try to prod him, or put him as if everything was all right in the country. But nothing is all right. And so they have not done that enough to the extent that they will be. When you do that, it means that you are losing the trust of the people.
Okay.
And I don't think they've done that enough.
Okay.
To win
there's a story on the front page of the Daily Graph. That talks about a woman who has sued the 37 military hospital for professional negligence. And it says a woman who has delivered a baby at the 37 military hospital through cesarean is suing the hospital for professional negligence, and in a rate wants a compensation of some 500,000 Ghana cedis because after the cesarean a surgical needle was left in there.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah. Now, in Ghana, it's very unusual for consumers or those are the service provision and to always make sure that they get their right worth. I mean, you know, that type of...
It's a cultural thing. Okay,
it's a cultural thing.
It's a cultural thing, and I'm happy this has happened. I know what you mean. It's personally, I think there's a large amount of political docility in this country. Okay, you walk all around the place, and it's surprising that there are people who will be robbed in broad daylight in Ghana, and the people will be sitting there looking at them. It's akin to the Western world. When something is happening, you pull out their mobile phones and be taking pictures of what is going on, so that they go upload it on YouTube instead of helping. I think that we need to wake up. Okay, there is I don't know what it is, but there's this culture of docility in the country where people feel as if the government is there. The government is there to do them a favor, or people in the service industry are there to do it as a favor. But that is not the case. This is a public hospital, and I'm glad people have taken these steps because there needs to be a wake-up call. Okay, accountability is nil, is zero, nada in this country. And you know, people, the term accountability is a cultural thing that we need to learn. People need to be accountable for what they do. When we put people in public office, we put them there because we trust them to go and manage the affairs of our health, of our health industry, our economy, and other things on behalf of us. They are not there to do us a favor because the only rights and the only authorities they have are the authorities that we give them to manage our affairs as it is. So I think this is a step in the right direction. I hope it will not go through the sort of legal bottlenecks and administrative bottlenecks that we see a result. I mean, we see a result, a very finite and definite result from this. And I think that if that happens, it will be a huge wake-up call because there are people who go all over the place and complain bitterly that any time that they try to make a demand or make demand for accountability, they face a lot of hostility. And I think that is a bad culture. It has led to a pervasiveness of mediocrity in the country because people know that they will not be taken on board for what they do. And I mean, we sympathize with her, you know, and I'm sure if you go through the country, there are people with similar stories, and it's very, very unfortunate.
Usually, if the public, they have difficulties like this, where should they be going as a first point to get some level of redress for their concerns?
Right. So I think there's a consumer. I don't know if there's a consumer protection agency.
Well, we have a consumer protection agency,
right?
But
right.
it is more of an advocacy group,
right,
than more regulatory.
Okay. So I think part of the problem might be that
there's no regulation backing it.
Backing it, yeah, and part of
it's just a pressure group.
Oh, I see what you mean. And so I think part of the problem might be that, in the sense that, people, first of all, education, people might not know even where to go and seek this redress. Or secondly, those chances are not even available. So education comes in, communication comes in. We need to make people aware of that fact. You know, like I said, accountability is a very cultural thing. You know, there are so many ways that people seek grievances from the government. You know, how many people, for instance, write letters to the president or to their parliamentarians? How many people are able to track the votes that take place in parliament? How many people are able to go on hunger strikes in order to make sure that they demand a certain accountability from the government? You know, they are there to manage things on our behalf, and I think that we need, you know, we cannot depend on government forever. We need a certain people or grassroots renaissance in this country. It doesn't have to be military in terms of Arab Spring or whatever. I mean, if so need be. But then there needs to be... we have realized that the politicians will not do everything for us, both to the left and to the right. And so I think what we need is a third force of a people, you know, a renaissance from the people, grassroots resolution, to make sure that we are holding our government accountable for what we do, instead of waiting for them to always do everything from the top down. Then accountability has to be demand driven, and then from the bottom up, instead of supply driven.
Okay, so then their difficulties will be resolved. Do you think that the state then needs to come in, make sure we have a consumer protection organization, or perhaps an agency that is backed by regulation?
Absolutely. You know, I think I skipped ahead by the consumer protection agency I was thinking about was in a totally different jurisdiction that I thought about. But it was good. You know,
no, we have one. It's called the Consumer Protection Agency. Okay. But it's a non-profit, it's a private thing.
But it's just an advocacy thing going on. Okay, my bad.
Headed by Kofi Kapito.
That, I think great. That's right. That's on point. So but then I think what has happened in other places is that now there is an agency set up by regulation, a regulatory body from the side of government, but then also taking on board civil society as well, with somebody heading it. I think it was Elizabeth Warren, a Harvard economics professor who fought for inequality, has done a lot of research in inequality.
In the States,
in the States, yeah. Bridging the income gap between the rich and the poor, and made it her lifelong calling to fight on behalf of consumers and fight on behalf of the voice of the voiceless, you know, in order to make sure that when policies are made, it has not only served the interest of the big companies, the oil companies, they get all the tax rebates, and the foreign companies, for instance, you know, we have research that shows that a lot of the foreign revenue that is earned is shipped back to other countries. We lose a lot in terms of tax rebates that we give to the foreign companies and all that. So I think the Consumer Protection Agency this time would make sure that it fights for the ordinary Ghanaian, the people who live in our villages, in our communities, is to make sure that regulation and policy that is being implemented does not end up serving them badly at all, instead of just serving the business community and the elite class. So I think this is I would definitely support such a call, you know, that the government sets up a consumer protection agency to be able to formulate policy and regulation to respond to consumer needs in a more systematic and in a more structural way.
Okay, the NPP, they will be having their, is it the National Congress, Delegates Congress?
Yeah.
That'll be on next week, the 12th of April,
right.
2014. It's in the Tamale Stadium itself. And so Tamale, the metropolis itself, will be agog and awash with colours of the NPP within the period. Are you satisfied so far with the level of debate among the various contesting individuals or candidates?
I think it's, to be honest, I think it's even a bit disappointing. We've matured in our democracy, and party politics is the fulcrum, is the center around which democratic politics revolves. And I think people have not, either they know or they are unwilling to recognize this. You know, people have not really come to that realization that the growth and the development of our parties is directly related to the growth and development of our democracy. If the parties thrive, it is for our good. If they don't, we all suffer in the end. And so I get a little bit disappointed when I look at the level of discourse or debate that goes on both internally within the parties and even within the media. You know, there's a lot of... I know that the whole bickering and internal politicization is something that cannot be avoided when it comes to situations like this. But there needs to be a certain limitation to that, and there needs to be a certain amount of caution that goes along with the competition that events like this involve. For instance, they need to avoid the personalization of the politics, and I have seen a lot of personality politics, personalization that has gone on. It has reduced the level of political debate. I mean, we've seen statements from MPA names, statements from Sir John, the rally that was held, not the rally, but then the protest that went on yesterday, and all that kind of thing. And there's a lot of ad hominem arguments, personality-centered politics, without a focus on issues, issue-based politics. And I think that has been the big disappointment as far as this particular run-up to the delegates conference is involved. I mean, it's something that cannot be avoided. But don't forget that every opposition party has a duty that they owe to Ghanaians, apart from the fact that their main goal and responsibility is to steal political party and political power. But when you are an official opposition party, your role is to make sure that you are holding government accountable, that you are being a voice for the other section of Ghanaians who probably wouldn't have their voice heard in parliament. That is the role of the minority. That's the role of the opposition party. I don't think they are doing a lot of that.
We're told when you get to interact with the leaders of the party, that is a party that has always prided itself and founded itself on multi-party democratic debate. And so that very stimulation is always welcome, invited, and always something that has always been a norm in the party.
I know that is a big frame that the NDC, the MPP has taken on, that in terms of their perception, the image that exists out there.
That they are more democratic, or what?
Either they are more democratic in the sense that they believe in the property owning democracy, development in freedom.
Yeah, they tell themselves as more liberal Democrats.
Exactly, they are more liberal. The party that encourages political debate and that encourage diversity of opinion. I mean, they were the party that repealed the criminal libel law. They were the party that made sure, encouraged a lot of pluralism in the media. So I think that they have taken, and it's good because at the end of the day, the country benefits. But if you ask me, I don't think the MPP of the 2000s is the MPP of the 2012 or 2014. I think that in a way, the MPP has lost its way, and I think that there needs to be a huge overhaul of either the internal party structures or even the personalities within the party. They need to inject fresh blood into the party. They need to be more open in the party because they have a very, take it or leave it, a very huge tag on them as a party that is sectional or sectarian in terms of their outreach. And there's no way you can win a national election by winning just only 2 regions. No,
but in context, they didn't win only 2 regions per se. It's summation of votes that decides who wins a presidential election. As a result of that, we call it simple...
the simple majority.
Yes, the simple majority. First past the post. And as a result of that, if you get to win by 1 vote, you get to win.
Yes, but
it's nowhere said that you need to win 8 regions to win the election.
No, I know what you mean, but in a way, we are not totally on an absolutely first past the post system. But that is why I think that those who drew up the constitution said that you need to get 50 plus 1 of the vote, and otherwise you go for a second. And also there are requirements within the constitution or whatever that your national executives must have a certain reach, okay, according to, in terms of the region, a certain regional spread. And that's why certain parties were denied participation in the last election because they didn't meet some of these things. So I know that there's no requirement that you have to win all the 8 or 10 regions to win an election. But the point that's beside the point. The point I'm trying to make is that there is a perception that the party is a bit inward looking and a bit sectarian. It's a bit sectionalist, even up to this day, in terms of their opening up or involving people in the party. I mean, whether it is right or wrong, it is an issue that they need to address because there are people in the party who feel as if they are not welcome in it, and there is.
We've had some reports in the media with certain personalities even coming out to make such comment. Now, if they are undertaking an electioneering or a process like this, at which various individuals throw mud, so to speak, at various people because they are opponents in an internal election, does it affect them public relation-wise or publicity-wise? Does it become a baggage to them prior to a main election?
That is the worst, that you've hit it. You know, that is the worst thing that could ever happen to a party, because at the end of the day, like I said, we all lose as a country, because it means that they fail to perform their legitimate role as a professional opposition in the party, reviewing government policy, offering alternative solutions, holding the government accountable, involving the people in the participatory role. I mean, it denies all of us the chance of an opposition, and it leaves a Leviathan kind of government which is free to run away with policies because they don't have people holding them. So when they do that, it doesn't only ruin their own reputation and their own electoral chance as a country, but as a party. But what I'm saying is that we even as a country, because I'm looking at this from a very nationalistic perspective, we even lose eventually as a party. Politically, for their own purposes, I mean, it's disastrous for them. You know, and I said that part of the reason why some of this takes place in the party is because there are camps or group personality, or there is a certain feeling among certain ethnic groups or a certain section of the Ghanaian populace that they are not welcome within the party, and so they want...
Is that not a perception more than a fact?
Well, I think perception has some roots in reality, and you need to address perception, because eventually it is what people believe. Okay, and if you don't address it, if you don't do things, or you don't do an outreach, they need to actually revamp, to make sure that they address the particular image that they have. I'll give you an example. When the last elections were held and the winning party had their rally at, is it Soja? No, the Circle, at Circle, you know, there's an open space in Circle where they had a winning rally.
The Holy Gardens.
Yeah, the Holy Gardens. I decided to do a little exploratory research, and I went exploratory research, so using what we call the interviews, okay, participant interviews. And so I decided to interview 100 people to find out why they voted for the party. I mean, what is it? Is it their policies? Just to understand the Ghanaian voter all the better. And after election, it is an exercise that people just undertake. So I decided to do that, to interview 100 people. Roland, by the time I got to the 20th person, I stopped doing the interviews.
Why?
Because the answers that they were giving me were very consistent. They kept telling me that, you know, the NDC, this is the party that people accept us. You know, this is the party that they respect us. This is the party that we feel accepted in. The other party, in some say, or 10, they don't accept. Oh, okay, so people feel alienated, you know, from their party. And
so as a party, how will they be in a position to address some of these challenges? Because these are supposed to be perceptions or perceived in the minds of people.
Well, they have a lot of work to do. They need to do a lot more outreach. They need to address it through communication, through public outreach, public campaigns. But then more importantly, I think there needs to be an overhaul of their structures and the way in which they involve people within the party. For instance, I know that some of the parties are thinking of having a primary where ordinary voters will be able to have a say in who is elected as leaders of the party. When you go to other jurisdictions, every member of the party has a role or has an opportunity to determine who takes part in the election. You go to the US, for instance, and they have as many as 50 states. And one state is almost like a country. We just have a small country with 10 regions. But every member of the 50 states has a determination or an opportunity to determine who leads their party. I think that if the parties in this country try to go towards that kind of system where they involve the grassroots all the more in the process, and it doesn't feel as if a few elite people go and sit somewhere and decide or make decisions for them, I think a lot more people will feel part of the party. And the advantage it has to us is that a lot more of the grassroots will feel as if they are being involved in the democratic process instead of just being people who are sought for when it comes to elections and after that they are forgotten. So, I mean, it is a revolution, or they need to reignite, or there needs to be an overhaul of the party system and the party structures in the country.
Well, they have been more revolutionary than many other parties.
They took the lead. I remember.
They always take the lead, actually.
That is true.
So if you say they should revolutionize, is it by personnel? How will this very election they're about to, or the Congress they're about to convene in Tamale, be as far as the election, the personalities they'll choose, etc., and how would it influence on the psyche of Ghana's national politics?
Exactly, and that was the point that I was trying to drive to. I mean, you are right, they always take the lead. I remember there were people from Zambia who came because they heard about the changes that they were making in the internal party structures of the NPP, and they came to learn about some of those. The NDC took a lead from that, and I know they are planning to introduce biometric voting. They are trying to register the party supporters to make sure that they take part in electing national delegates and so on and so forth. So those are the kind of changes that I'm talking about. In terms of the National Delegates Congress, I think it's a great avatar or a great display of our democracy, our democratic credentials. And we don't always have to wait till national elections. I think that it is a chance for us to show the world that despite our disagreements, despite our political affiliations, we are professional in the conduct of our politics. As far as their opponents might be happy if there was a lot of trouble that came out of the of the Delegates Congress, because then it serves them well. But I think that the country will be all the better if we have political parties that have good National Delegates Conference. It is a great time for them to display the maturity of our democracy. I would wish that we will have Delegates Congress on both the NDC and the NPP, which will be extremely professional, that people feel as if the party structures are working for them, and conferences that involve the grassroots as much as possible, instead of shutting some people out and shutting some people in. And it's conducted in a way that seems as if that you have to belong to a certain elite class before you are involved in the party structures. And people feel that way at this point in time. And I think it is not good only for the party, but for the concept of pluralism and grassroots democracy, which lies at the heart of any development process. Because don't forget that it's when people feel alienated that they feel as if then, in that case, they have to do anything to make sure that their voices are heard. And that can have devastating consequences for us as a country. So the growth and the development, at the end of the day, here's the thesis, or here's the premise that I'm putting out, that the growth of the parties is directly proportional or related to the development of our democracies. And we wish the NPP well. We hope that, as well as the NDC, we hope that they have more professional party structures, that we continue to grow in the way we conduct our affairs at the party level, and that is going to inure to the benefit and each and every one of us as Ghanaians.
Now, let's move our attention to some other issues, and we're still on elections and politics, though, because the Electoral Commission is expected to embark on limited registration exercises, and it's a result of the difficulties they encountered prior to the 2012 elections. So they'll start opening their doors. We're being told that from June to voters who have qualified after just having clocked 18 and thereafter, and they'll be in a position to vote. So they can enter any EC designated office and go and register. So early opening of registration openings for people. How does it all go well?
I think it's great.
I think
it's great. You have to give credit where credit is due. It is not every time that we have to chastise and bastardize our public officials. When I first read this, I was agog. I was like, this is great, because one of the big things that have surrounded our party politics is the party registration exercise, where some people actually feel when it's getting close to the election period, they have this small window, they open, people register, and then, there are long queues and so on. We've all seen the queues that have mounted, and they have only provided limited places where you can go and register. All those problems that have structural problems that have taken place when it comes to party registration, I think will be taken care of if this particular exercise is successful. If there comes a day when any Ghanaian can wake up at any time, and we don't necessarily have to wait for 2 weeks before the election, a month before the election, before we can be able to go and register and have a card, that people don't feel as if they are being denied the right to register and vote, because that lies at the heart of democracy. When people feel as if they are being denied a chance to make their voice heard, it can lead to a lot of upheaval. And so I think that this is more important than a lot of us realize, because it is going to expand the reach, it is going to involve more people, and it will remove that particular impression that people feel as if they are not being allowed to register because they feel that, oh, this is an NDC or NPP constituency, and so if you don't register, we will not be able to vote for them to get their award back. I think it will take care of a lot of that. They need to go ahead to have what they call the early voting early, to expand the early voting reach to more than just the military. I was very surprised when in the last election they prevented media people from being part of the early voting group, because there's a legitimate reason why some people need to vote early. In other democracies, there's a window period where they have early voting, and even ordinary voters who want to just vote early can be able to do it.
It's because the U.S. system, they vote because they use the college system. Now, if we take a look at the current initiatives being undertaken by the Electoral Commission, and currently they've had their offices since the beginning of the year in various regions of the country, trying to sensitize people, meet various stakeholder groups, political party stakeholders, etc. How will these interactions help in perhaps reducing the anxiety among the stakeholders that they work with?
Well, it definitely will go a long way, because a lot of what we have seen is that most of the time people feel, especially the political parties, feel as if that they have not been carried along, or they have not been carried through in terms of policy formulation. Okay, there's not a diversity of voices, even civil society at certain times. And so I think what this does is that, I mean, you're right, it reduces a lot of the tension, it reduces a lot of the anxiety and the trepidation that people feel. And that is why openness is a very important feature or ideal of democracy. When you are open and when you are very transparent and you are very involved, there's a diversity, okay, of voices that are involved in the process. I think it goes a very long way to reduce a lot of the cynicism that people have about the political class. And for all you know, some of these things that people have maybe will be misinformation. But if we have an electoral commission that is very, very transparent, that is people-oriented, and the NCC that has a very great outreach program, I think that it will reduce a lot of the cynicism and misinformation that people have. It would help us to have a more positive democratic culture, and it will help in the political socialization process, because political culture and political socialization are very important factors that help in the sustenance of democracy. And these efforts can be placed within those particular rubric. It will mean that people are going to be more trusting of the structures that are there, and they are more likely to be involved in development processes of their countries. And so we can only encourage the EC in this particular effort that they do.
Okay, so now we're going to have the openings available for young people or whoever turns 18 or has not registered before. How the parties now are always the bigger stakeholders that they interact with, and they tend to have their difficulties. Usually we would have the parties bringing their agents there. The concern they had raised on this very subject is that they can't have their agents there. How all the time? So how can that be done in such a way that, well, perhaps the opening is done within a period or within a specified time, so everybody's convenient?
Right. Well, one of the nice innovations, if I should say so, of our kind of the way we run democracy here is our involvement of the party agents in the election. I don't think legally, like we heard during the Supreme Court, legally they are required to be there. It is the Electoral Commission that is mandated by law to run elections. But the fact that we do have a certain high level of political involvement from the political parties in terms of the agents being there to either sign off or to either observe, to either monitor, I think it's a beautiful process, and I don't think the Electoral Commission should shy away at all from doing something like this when it comes to the registration exercise. We know that young people are a very strong force when it comes to the youth, are a very important demographic group when it comes to national development, and there is a lot of apathy on the part of the youth. You know, they would rather be interested in showbiz or other things rather than to be involved in politics. There's a certain level of apathy when it comes to the youth, and but then they are the future leaders. And so I think that an effort, a very concerted effort to make sure that we bring young people about, that by the time they turn 18 or by the time that they reach the voting age, they are cultured and conscientized to be able to be a part of the political process by making sure that they have a voter's ID card. I think it is something that we really need to move towards, because these are the very people who are going to be involved in the political process in the future to come. And if there's a certain level of apathy on their behalf, I mean, it augurs well badly for us. So I think that the Electoral Commission shouldn't shy away from involving the political parties directly in this process. And although we know that it is their constitutional mandate to do it, but I think the more they involve them in some of these exercises, the better it is, because then they go out there and educate their own voters, they educate their own party members, and everybody is on the same level, when it comes to knowledge or education or information about the political processes, instead of a lot of the rumor and misinformation that we get, particularly in, excuse my language, the semi-illiterate population.
Okay, so that'll be it for the morning, and thanks for joining us. Dr. H.S. Kanku is with the School of Communication Studies, the University of Ghana. Thanks for joining us. We're always grateful to have you in the studio. And, well, that's been it for the discussions. Next, we'll have to go for a short break. When we come back, we have a lot more for you.